So hello and welcome back, guys, to another Improving Season podcast. It is me, Pascal Steve, and on the other end, it is my man, Steve Hall. I know that you just came back from a adult session and arm session.
I started with calves to get them out of the way, most of all. Then I did mostly delts, then back, and then finished off with 2 sets of biceps. So I got a pump.
Look at the guns, man. Crazy.
2 sets of what they called facing away single arm curls, or I think they were Bayesian curls as well. I don't know if Meno, he kind of took them as a Bayesian curl. Yeah. Same with, I did lat prayers, and they're also called like straight arm pull downs, but Meno calls them lat prayers. I don't know.
Yeah, and then there's Berta raises. Everyone, and Meadows rows. I mean, everyone has an exercise. Steve, what's your exercise? Have you already come up with one? Okay, I custom. What is it? A trademark exercise for you?
I haven't, but I know Abel and Dave McConey give me, like, they call it like a Hall's curl or something, where you curl up and then do that. Kind of you get the shortened position or whatever, or like you let the elbow, you get shoulder flexion involved. But I don't really do that often. I did it for a time, and I haven't, I do it less now at least. I never ever called it like my curl by any means. And if I was to credit that to anything, it would be Mike, because he was the first one I saw really doing it that way. So I don't even know how I used to curl before I curled with that. I mean,
it doesn't really make any kind of difference anyway, does it?
No.
You just do something like this, and voila, puff. Yeah, it's just a mountain.
To some extent, that is very, very true. I'm still shocked at how little volume they need. I'm just like 2 sets of preacher, like 2 sets of a bicep curl, and they are blasted. I'm just like, maybe I could do more, but there's just no point. Like, I prefer to put more volume to almost any other muscle group at this stage.
Yeah,
but I'm surprised at how little volume like some muscle groups are taking at the moment. I'm just like, there's no. Because I come from a background of kind of almost wanting to add sets. So when I go through sessions and I am basically consistently every time not adding sets, I'm like, this feels almost wrong, but it is right. It just feels wrong in that moment. So it's interesting to have come from like that background of just being like, if it was wrong not to add a set, that's how I had it in my head. Whereas now it's like, no, it's wrong to add a set actually in this situation. Yeah.
But I mean, that idea you have probably stolen anyway.
Yeah, true.
Because
nothing is original to
when
me.
it comes to training to failure, maintenance phases, not adding volume, it's probably then stolen from one particular person, or maybe 2 or 3 people, isn't it?
Sounds like a fast food chain.
I don't get it.
The double. Wait, do you actually not get it, or are you just joking?
No, I really don't get it.
You don't. Okay. Sounds like Martin fast food chain, but isn't that person. The golden arches. There you go.
Now I get it. Yeah. No,
anyway, absolutely. He who shall not be named. That's a joke, but
we don't say his name here.
For anyone who doesn't know, it's just like completely lost. But actually, just to have a tangent, I'm getting out of the habit of saying side tangent. It's like inherently I want to say side before tangent. I know I shouldn't.
Maybe you should do it intentionally though. To piss people off.
Yeah.
If you know that it's not right and you still do it, then who's the stupid person then? You know?
It's all for the algorithm. Let's get the comments in. Let's go for a side tangent. Yeah. What I was going to say, it was like just like considering mental health. So I don't need to necessarily give like details or particular context, but essentially I was part of a Facebook group, and like it doesn't matter where it is. It could be someone you're following or anything like that. And we've spoken about it before, but if someone's triggering you and like you're not getting any value from that relationship, exit that relationship. And for some reason, I find it really hard to let go sometimes with these things, where it feels wrong, like I'm cheating myself, or I should be doing something else, like trying to talk to that person and like get them to understand, like, I don't know, my perspective or something. But in a lot of situations, as I mature as an adult, sometimes the best thing to do is just step away. Yeah. That was something I experienced at least last week.
It's probably just because this is what you're expecting to do in normal life outside of the internet. You know, this is how you normally react. When someone is giving you shit, then you want to approach him, confront him with the situation, and then hopefully talk it out. But even in real life, that's not always the case, as we all know. And to me, this, even though that certain individuals are very, very smart and very intelligent, this in that area or that situation doesn't really scream or shout intelligence to me. And as we know, intelligence is multifaceted, and especially there, it's kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Honestly, if you can't even normally talk with someone else about disagreements, maybe, then to me, I don't know, it's just a form of stupidity.
Yeah, and I think some people thrive off, like, I know there are some people that like conflict, they debates. I know, like, even Mike Israel, like, he likes having like those challenging conversations. I remember when they were over and you guys were talking about, I think it was like makeup versus like pickup artists.
Man, I do remember that discussion quite often because I was very tired. And I always then remember back and think like, man, I didn't really handle that discussion. And it was actually not really an important discussion about that topic, right? But at the same time, that wasn't me. And that nags me, you know, when you are getting into a discussion and you're not really representing what it truly standing for, and you don't have the arguments, maybe because you're just like absolutely shattered, for example, you know. And
we're hearing the excuses now. You lost the debate.
Absolutely. No.
But yeah, like Mike likes, like, he is happy to come on the channel and debate people. Like, it isn't me like pinning, not that anyone thinks this, but I'm not like putting a gun to Mike's head and being like, come on, you've got to come on and do this debate with this person. Like, Mike is all about that because he thrives in those situations, and he's a good debater, and he doesn't do it in a like horrible way either at all. So it has like a really cool questioning style, which I really like. But for me, I hate confrontation, and it doesn't matter if it's someone just like commenting on my post, like in a challenging way. Even that, to a certain degree, I find hard. Like I'm not just going to block someone that like disagrees with a post of mine. That's like dogmatism at its worst and really stupid. In my opinion, you should be able to like comment back and forth. But if someone's like, those sort of things that I kind of find a bit triggering. And so social media at times, we've spoken about it like ad nauseum, like there's pros and cons. And one of the biggest cons for me is it does provide quite a bit of anxiety in those sort of like confrontational sort of situations. And I think even to the extent where at times, maybe I don't speak my mind as truly as I would like in real life, because I know with it comes consequences that I'm not prepared to have to like deal with and handle, because it's just not worth the mental kind of strain that it puts on me.
Yeah, but this is also a mature approach in my opinion, because that's what you normally also do outside of the internet. You don't always just like speak your mind, like the way that you initially feel in that given moment, because most things have consequences. Sometimes I'm also thinking things where I'm just like, holy fuck, I would love to say that, but I know that it has consequences that I'm probably not willing to take on. Yeah. You know, even though that it might feel to say that particular thing that's on my mind. And
sometimes you think it in the moment, but it doesn't truly reflect your full thoughts surrounding the matter or what have you.
Yeah.
So it's nice having someone, like for us, at least for the listeners listening, we often, like our message to Pascal just being like, this pissed me off, look at it. And then we'll talk about it a bit, and then we'll forget about it or what have you. So
if we ever separate, Steve, you have a lot of leverage against me and I have a lot of leverage against you, so never piss me off.
I don't even know if there's anything like bad enough that could be career ending. No, there's definitely not anything that could be career ending. It's not like, by the way,
except for the £10,000 that you're paying monthly for all of the steroids that you're using. I am referring to the Liverking. Yes, I actually then listened to that one.
Yes.
And it's not that I'm really interested in that, but I found it because it popped up everywhere and I was just like, yeah, all right, let's check it out. Up to this point, I really had no idea who that guy is. I heard of him.
Had you seen him before?
Yeah. I heard of him. I knew his face, but I never really knew what he was standing for. I never really listened to any kind of podcast or anything alike, you know? So I had no idea. But I mean, just those people who thought that he was natural, like that is the problem. right? Of course, he is also the problem because he clearly took advantage of that position and deceiving people. And I don't really like that when someone is just like ripping people. It's kind of scamming people, you know? That's
absolutely
kind of a different form of scamming people. And that's something that I have a massive issue with. Benefiting yourself in that you're deceiving other people. At the same time, though, the message behind it, what's the problem, is also then that a person like this, in the day and age nowadays with social media and all that kind of stuff, can still make those claims, not being held accountable, and build a huge amount of wealth by basically selling absolute fraud and bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I was in a similar position to you. I knew who he was. I'd seen some of his stuff come up because you almost can't avoid it if you're in the fitness industry because like his stuff is very based around that sort of thing. And I and so part of it is intrigue because he's such a weird individual, like eating raw bone marrow and like just like raw testicles and shit like this. So obviously it garners tons of attention. And then he was, and the problem with him is he was incredibly adamant about being drug-free, like because he'd been questioned all the time. He was just like, no, definitely not. And it's like he never had hard evidence, but people took him for his word because he was charismatic. He did speak well. He used scientific language. He said studies, said certain things, and again, no one's fact-checking him. You don't have like, it'll probably come in future, you know, like I think it was on Facebook. Sometimes it highlights things as like fake news. It should have like in YouTube videos, it has like a fact checker in the algorithm or whatever it is in their system that can check what you're saying at the time. That'd be hilarious. But
that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, that would be tough. You're the one doing computer science now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but that is something, of course, that Twitter already thought about at some point, and also Facebook. But how do you really kind of test things? Some things are very clear, of course, and quite obvious, right? But not to the niche or the audience that is then consuming it, for example. And I think it can actually then create more harm than actual good because it's kind of a form of censorship.
Yeah,
which
I see that.
Is a very complex topic that we can't really cover here, or I don't want to cover here because it's super, super complex, right? It's not just like, all right, it's morally right to censor here, but not here. And that's why when it comes to fake news and all that kind of stuff, it's very hard to regulate, I think.
I think on the surface, when I just think about it, it sounds great. But when you actually think about the practical, what that means practically, like, no, it just couldn't work. It reminds me of, I got a post taken down by Instagram because it was like inciting violence. And it was the one where I was saying like, it was like you versus you. And it was like, I wrote in my caption, "Fuck you, Steve, I'm going to beat you." Yeah. And I think like Instagram, the system picked it up as if it was violence against Steve. And it's like, I just flagged it up to them. And they obviously, like a human, I guess, looked at it and were like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. This isn't actually like negative. It doesn't need to be taken down. But sometimes I see posts on Instagram, like it could be the image. And I'm like, how the hell's that stayed up there? And then something else gets taken down. And I'm like, why is that being taken down? I don't think computer science is quite there yet with those sort of things. So
one thing that really stood out about the Liverking video that was from More Plates, More Dates was that our man, Geoffrey, was actually then presented in that video about kind of reliable sources when it comes to fitness content. And I know that Geoffrey is actually watching and listening to our podcast. So congratulations, Geoffrey.
That's awesome.
You made it. Yeah, absolutely. And then I took a look at Geoffrey's following count, subscriber count over on YouTube, and it has skyrocketed. I still remember when he was around 50,000, and that's not that long ago. And now he's already close to 100,000 subscribers.
Wow, that's awesome for him.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for him. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't got to that part where I didn't know it did that at the end at some point, but it just goes to show what these sort of large accounts can do. But also for someone like Geoffrey, it shows what just being consistent, putting out quality information. Like you never know what's going to happen
without a big kind of production setup or so, right? He said it himself. He was considering like, okay, do I go down that route, up the production game, really become a YouTuber? So I think the higher the subscriber count goes, the more you consider that. But it just goes to show, right? If you put out solid information and that's, you're basically also feeding what people want to hear and see in the initial moment, then you can even make it with a less of an optimal setup.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I was actually thinking about Geoffrey. I often see him because I watch videos on YouTube, I watch some podcasts, and I see him in comment sections on videos, like 3DMJs, for example. Like I watched Alberto's latest one, and I actually commented on it. And I was like, Geoffrey also plays the social media aspect, like the social aspect of YouTube, which we don't, like we almost use it as like I do it on Instagram a bit, but more so on YouTube, we use it as like a dump, like our content, and we comment to our guys, our followers. We don't really kind of go out there to seek like and comment and interact. But I guess people might see your name in their comment section and then go see your stuff and be like, oh, or they've heard your name before. Like Geoffrey might have come up in our discussions, then he's in the comment section, and then our followers find him, or like anyone who comes up. So yeah, there's stuff like to consider like that. And then also getting involved with, like we did it last week with the 5 things I wish I knew before lifting, like getting involved with some of the community on YouTube too. I think Geoffrey does those aspects well. As well. Not that absolutely. I don't think he's necessarily thinking about it. He might be thinking about it a lot, but I think he just enjoys it too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think this is also the people who made it the furthest, who enjoy the entire process, right? Of course, some aspects you enjoy more than others, but most of the time it's kind of the enjoyment of kind of maybe sharing your thoughts, information, I don't know, different things here in YouTube. Of course, there are just YouTube channels who do it very professionally. One of our videographers that we've worked with, Gordon Greenhorn, he has worked with a very, very professional YouTuber for a while. And he said it himself, like the insight that he received from like top tier level YouTubers and production level there, like there's an entire team of like 20 people around there, is something completely different to just like a person who's vlogging themselves.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And yeah, it's just like there's a different audience for those sort of things, because sometimes when something looks that professional, it's almost intimidating. Whereas when something's just raw and standing in front of the camera, and again, a few characters like Geoffrey who do that, like Dave even has some ways just like standing and talking in front of the camera. Like it's not a huge amount of effort on that person, but people like hearing, like once you've got a bit of an audience, they like hearing your opinion and seeing behind the scenes. I don't know if you've had any clients who have watched our Das Gym vlog, but I had a few clients say like, I watched it and actually I took home some stuff that I've never taken home from like our coaching, just from seeing you guys interact and kind of go through the training. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like there's insights you don't get through like just informative videos all the time.
Up to this day, I'm still just too much doubting myself when it comes to this. That's also why I'm not continuing to do kind of vlogs or anything alike, because I always held myself to the highest standard when it comes to production level, which is of course to my detriment, because as we know, plenty of people, it's just about getting started and putting yourself out there. It's not about having the fanciest setup, having the fanciest camera, having the fanciest sound or so. It's more about having good information, right? And then everything else is more like secondary, tertiary, and all that kind of stuff. And this is definitely to my detriment, because I'm not constantly doing things. It's just like I'm overthinking things, planning too much, and it becomes more of a mental masturbation, you know, where it's like, all right, I'm telling other people that I'm going to do it, but I never actually do it.
Yeah, it's, you can go like, because you look back at your vlogs and they're definitely a higher standard than mine, because if I was to do like, and I can see why, because we're full-time coaches, if I was to do it at the level that you were trying to maintain to do it, and if I was to try and do that, it takes a lot of time, thinking and energy, because you're thinking about, right, I'm going to take a shot here, but I'm actually going to take it from this angle, I've got to set up 2 cameras, I've got to do that walkthrough twice or whatever it is. And it's just like, wow, like you have to, like, if you want to go to that level, you really have to go there. But I think, again, with Geoffrey is a great example of someone like we can take inspiration from him and be like, right, let's not worry so much about quality in the time for the time being. Let's just continue the consistency of the quantity and the good information. And then hopefully at some point, it might get to a point where someone gives us a massive shout out and we're like, right, let's invest now, because clearly this is the way we want to go. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about the training and bringing it back there, Steve, where are you at the moment? Like, I can't really recall where you're at
in
regards to your mesocycle.
Week 4 And can you believe this is my third mesocycle since mini cutting?
That's crazy.
How has time flown? Like the mini cut feels like ages ago. At the same time, crazy, it feels like just very recently.
So, can I say something on that though?
Sure.
Because it's often the other way around as well. You know, gaining phase now, reflecting upon the 3 mesocycles, they went by super quickly. Most of the time though, it happens to a cutting phase as well. And often in the initial moment, it just sucks because, hey man, eating just a little bit more food is cool, right? Especially when it's kind of tasty food. Is it necessary though? No, right? But in the initial moment when you're cutting, you're always dreaming of the other side, of just getting there, eating a little bit more food, just eating a little bit more and feeling satiated most of the time. But if you just stick with it, then you will be at that point where you are at as well, looking back and think like, holy shit, man, I've been cutting since 12 weeks already. Man, the time flew by so quickly, right?
Yeah.
Stay occupied. Do other things instead of just sitting at home, because when you are just sitting on your couch thinking about food, yeah, guess what? Time is not flying by quickly.
No, absolutely. And even thinking like it's a year since like I ended comp prep, like, and I was completely in, and even in those situations, because your contest prep is long, like in many cases, it's like 6 months. After a month, I don't know if you were like this because your post was a bit different, but I know after a month of competing, I was like, man, that, like, I already feel like I'm almost 90% back to my normal self. It's crazy just to think how quickly that time just, in the moment, it feels really long. And that's why, especially towards the end of contest prep, it could be a long diet though. I'm like, just take every day as it comes, because if you focus too much on kind of the time you've been here, the time to come in future, you end up playing mind games on yourself. You just have to take each day as it comes. And in reality, like, your life is the same. You're just eating less, and it will come, like, this will pass, as we've spoken about before.
Yeah, I think that you easily get caught up in the moment of thinking too much about then a deficit, because most of the time people aren't doing that in the gaining phase, which is also to their detriment, because they are slacking off too much in a gaining phase and taking things way too serious in a cutting phase. I'm not saying that you shouldn't really be rigid or disciplined or taking it seriously, but more so the time that is spent of thinking about what it is that you're doing, right? In a cutting phase, you're constantly thinking about like, all right, here today, stepping on the scale, pooping, having like my meals at XYZ time. And so, and in a gaining phase, you take things a little bit more flexibly. And then deep in a gaining phase, you're completely slacking off, getting complacent and all that kind of stuff, right? The pendulum swings too far from one side to the other. And this is where then most people don't actually see the progress that they would like. Cutting becomes more of a chore, and gaining phase is never really as productive as they wish it would.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think because hopefully as a bodybuilder, you're spending most of your time in a gaining phase. If you don't nail those big rocks every day, like, it's so easy to get complacent and time just flies, where you're like, oh wow, 6 months have gone by and I've actually not gained any weight. I've just been going to the gym and like going through the motions. And I've probably done that, to be fair, for periods of time, but it really does start to add up, because like that age limit really to your genetic ceiling, like in terms of your muscle ceiling, like that age limit of like, I don't know, 40 or so, like that starts creeping closer and closer. And every like 6 months, you just like complacently go through your off season because you're eating plenty, training's all right, and you can be flexible. You don't worry about your sleep so much because it doesn't have as big as an impact. But when you're nailing things, like that 6 months, that adds up too. Like where you do see those small gains. Actually, and really cool analogy I like for this, because it really presented itself this past couple of weeks, is the analogy of like toothpaste. You've probably been there where you have like, I don't know if people have like the tubes of toothpaste, but basically you think you finished it. And this is like being an advanced lifter. And I was surprised. I was like, I've had this last bit of fucking, like, the tube's empty, I thought, but it's lasted now like 3 weeks of just like squeezing a bit here, squeezing a bit there. Oh, there's more coming out. And it's like, I was just like, this is the perfect analogy as an advanced lifter, where you're just like, you can just keep squeezing out these little bits where you think you're finished. And it was just funny doing it in real life, where you look at this tube and you're just like, it's done. But then you're like, nah, there's a bit here, there's a bit here. And it can surprise how much you can really keep eking out gains.
There are two types of people, Steve. And I wonder what type of person you are. How are you squeezing out the toothpaste?
So initially when it's like new, I don't give a shit. I just press it down wherever.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
But when it gets to this point,
it already hurts.
When it gets to this point, I'm like, right, start from the end and then like push my fingers to get it all. But I imagine you're the person who, as soon as you open a tube, you start right at the end.
At the end, it needs to be in order, right? That's just the way that I am. And as soon as I'm coming close to the end, I'm using a hack. What I'm doing is I'm folding it.
Yeah. Roll it.
And then, so that it not just kind of folds back again and is kind of like a long kind of tube, right? I am actually using those clips that you can use to close kind of kitchen stuff, you know?
Yeah, I know.
And I'm closing it so that it stays in that position. Perfect hack to really get everything out of the toothpaste.
That's so funny.
Just a tip on the side.
I like it. But this is, you can further the analogy, because when you get a fresh tube of toothpaste, you can just fucking squeeze it recklessly and paste comes out.
That's true.
You're all good. Just like a newbie lifter, they can just squeeze randomly and it's all good. But when you get advanced, you need these hacks to get out these last little bits. And if you're complacent about it, you'll like go for like trying to get some out.
Man, it's
nothing
a
will come
very
out.
good analogy. I love analogies, honestly.
Yeah, same. So yeah, if you're complacent and you're just like, I don't know, I'll go for a random squeeze. Will anything come out? Oh no, it's finished. So I'll bin it. I'll give up. I'll go to a new tube, whatever. But it's like, no. Do Pascal's method, roll it and then clip it, and you'll be surprised how much you can keep getting out from this.
There are kind of different products, especially when it comes to food, that make it really angers me. There is kind of that.
Oh, I know.
That hamburger sauce in like a plastic kind of squeeze bin. But the thing is that it is not liquid enough so that the last bits come out. So you and you can't really open them normally. So you really need to be kind of like, I don't know, a surgeon, going underneath it with a knife so that you can open it up. And there's still so much left in there. And I'm just like pissed off because people, they want you to get rid of that and buy a new tub instead of opening it up. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
It's like a lot of nut butters are like that, where you just can't get the last like little bits. Or you can buy like, I think there's specific spatulas you can buy on the internet, like silicone ones that you can like put in to like get out the last bits. But I quite often, with like ketchup, for example, when you can't get those last bits out of like the plastic bottle, I'm a bit of a savage, and I'll just put in like a bit of water and I'll water it down so then it like clears it and I can squeeze out that last bit.
Yeah, not bad.
It works okay.
Cool. Then last week we had like the 5 things I wish I knew before starting, or when I started lifting. And you had some kind of suggestion, Steve, what we should do next. I can't really recall what it was. Do you remember? I think so, yeah. About a different kind of thing, about 5 things that, I don't know.
I can't remember what my suggestion was. I didn't know I had a suggestion. I literally can't remember, but it wouldn't surprise me if my memory has just decided to chuck it out. It does that.
Would it be the same actually if we were to do kind of 5 things I wish I didn't do? Because
yeah, we could try that.
I mean, it's kind of boiling down to the same, isn't it?
Yeah, to be fair, it is. I do have some additional thoughts actually on the 5 things. I wrote them down because I'm going to do a vlog at some point, and I kind of I guess I thought about them a bit more, and I pulled out some additional ones. So one of them, I don't think we really spoke about it. Maybe we did, but it was just about like making slow progressions. I think when I was lifting, like for my first 5 years, I was all about trying to hit a PR like every week and rushing progress. And I think that's what led me to injuries a lot of the time, where my technique would keep breaking down, and then I'd get injured, have to take time off. Whereas I wish I kind of knew that once you've met a threshold of kind of relative intensity, really, I don't know, the information wasn't out there back then. But again, this is why I wish I knew it before. I wish I knew about the fact I could meet a threshold for relative intensity, work with like a wide range of rep ranges, because I was all about like just trying to add load to like every lift. And I didn't really, again, it comes back to technique, but I didn't really focus too much on technique. And yeah, I wish I didn't have the shoulder injury I've got. I don't know what difference that would make to my physique. I don't imagine it would be a lot, but it might help my pressing movements be a bit stronger. Maybe that would help my chest be a bit bigger. I'm not sure.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
No, I think your chest is already decent in comparison to mine. But yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from with this. And that made me think of one thing, and that is normally the people that we're working with are either competitors. It's just it's a marginal amount of people that we are working with who are truly competitors. And then we have most of the time people who are lifting since, like, I would say everything in between kind of 1 to 5 to 6 years. Of course, sometimes there's an outside to that, but generally speaking, like most of the people I would say that we are working with have trained like since 2 to 3 years seriously, and everything before that is kind of like maybe messing around. Some people have trained up to 10 years, but would never really say that it's kind of 10 years or so, but like in that general ballpark. And unfortunately, this is also where the honeymoon phase is over. And whenever you then work with them, right, they may have expected kind of like massive progress, that like newbie gains, basically. That's what some people are expecting still to be the case during that time. And then they drop off of the coaching, and you never really hear from them again, or you never really see them again on social media because they've never been really that person who shared their progress. And sometimes I wonder what happened. Of course, I'm sometimes reaching out to old athletes, but that doesn't mean that they always respond, because sometimes people then think it's just a sales pitch of like getting you back. Yeah. But it's more like coming from a genuine position of like, hey, how are you doing, man? Like, honestly, we've worked together and I can't see what you're up to. Are you still lifting? And this is the question that I had, Steve, and maybe you have some ideas about it. I wonder that how many people do lift for like, let's say 2 to 5 years, don't really see the progress that they would like to. Maybe also because of a skewed perception of what's actually possible for them, and then drop all along.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point. I've definitely seen it with people where they've kind of seen that fast progress. They grow accustomed to that. And then when it gets very slow and challenging, I think if you don't fall in love with the lifestyle of the training, the nutrition, those aspects, and you don't find value in that and enjoyment in those things, then you're screwed, because you have to enjoy those things, because you can't enjoy just the muscle gain because it's such a slow build at that point. And there's like bad things you have to kind of accept in terms of like gaining more fat at some stages to eventually look better. So you have to be really bought into the process. And I would say that's the ones, in terms of my clients, that see the best results, and I guess it would be the same with you, Pascal, are those who are really bought into the process of like they check in each week. And you don't really have doubts that they've missed a protein feeding during the week. Like you almost don't need to check that box in terms of on their spreadsheet. You're more so hearing about how's their sleep, how's their stress, is there any niggles or injuries, how's their training performance, how the exercise is feeling. It's more those sort of aspects, because they're nailing the basics in the background, because that's just what they do now. It's like brushing their teeth to bring in toothpaste again. So yeah, I think the ones who, they don't really love the process, they love like the outcome in terms of the look that they're getting. They unfortunately will never get that because they don't love the process, which is what you have to end up enjoying to eventually get to that outcome. I think that therefore, like a lot of people might just, I don't know, guess it's not worth the investment for them, which is fair, I think, in some cases. But I think in some cases, they just didn't give it enough time to really, because I think sometimes it can feel uncomfortable. You can't find your feet. You don't enjoy the process just yet. So I think sometimes people have the wrong perception that they have to do some things that, like we've discussed it, when it boils down to it, there are some bare basics that you need to achieve on like a daily and weekly basis to make progress. And it's not as bad as maybe some people make out, but they might think, oh man, I have to, I don't know, do all these various things. And maybe initially it doesn't become routine and habit and comfortable for them. So they just always feel uncomfortable about it. Or they're doing some things that are just totally unnecessary. And you start with them and you're like, right, let's just do this thing. And you can slowly build up these habits for them so they have a really good foundation to then progress on. So yeah, I think it's kind of those sort of situations that happen.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you that it's absolutely fair if someone is realizing that it's not worth it for them anymore. The amount of effort and time that they have to invest to see some changes. I think that's with everything in life. And also our personal preferences, they do change. Our interests do change. Maybe things happen in our life where we need to set some priorities as well. So that's totally all right. I just sometimes wonder, like, okay, what happened to XYZ? Is he still lifting? Has he made some progress? You know, because while I am not the most genetically best and I'm not the biggest, I'm not the most muscular, and I have some kind of unfortunate downsides to my looks when it comes to, for example, like loose skin and all that kind of stuff, I do still think that I've made, so in my opinion and in my own perception, I've made massive leaps forward and I've completely changed my physique. But this took me a long time to actually get there. And it took me a lot of tinkering around, trying different things, going through sucky times of kind of, I don't know, injuries, nasty injuries even, times that were suboptimal, mental issues as well, all that kind of stuff. But it still was worth it in actually getting there and seeing now where I am right now, even though that the carrot on the stick is always then a moving target as well, right? What I look now is probably something that I would have been absolutely happy about and also staggered about just 5, 6, 7 years ago. And now it's not even great to me anymore because the carrot is now once again 2 steps in front of me and I never really reach it, but I will only ever have the feeling that I'm getting closer to it if I start moving. If I'm just standing still, then I definitely know that I won't really reach the carrot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just sometimes I think that especially when it comes to social media and also seeing pages such as Natty News Daily, you see all of those amazing natty bodybuilders. But of course, these are the people who want to be seen as well. And there's no shame in that, right? Being proud of your accomplishment and all that kind of stuff. But this is often not the total representation of the people who are into lifting and that we are working with and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that the vast majority of people who are training since like 2 to 4 to 5 years are tagging someone like Natty News Daily or so because they want to get the reshare, because they do see the other standard and they think like, all right, I'm not in that league and that's why I'm not actually putting myself out there, even though that maybe their accomplishment are actually something that they can be proud of. But because they only see one side of the medal, they think that their accomplishments are actually very, very bad.
Yeah.
Right. And then they are giving up. And that's unfortunate, in my opinion.
It really is, because even if some of those with maybe like more average to kind of less than average genetics are sharing their progress, they're just simply not going to get the airtime that those with greater genetics do. And I mean, you just have to be on kind of Instagram for like, 10 seconds, and you see like a teenager who has been lifting for 2 years and is more jacked than like you are after a decade. You're just like, then you really doubt yourself. So that's why I'm proud of what we do, because we've stuck it out. We've also documented quite a bit of our journey. Maybe more so me than you, but we still have you still have images of when you were like back in the day and the progress you've made. And obviously we've been on here talking about it, and we've also shared our concerns and doubts. And so I hope that inspires people who really love it to kind of keep going and to embrace that. And that you made a post, I think it was one of your reels, where basically it's like you had some people commenting, maybe if it had been on YouTube, who were just like, man, why do you bother when you look the way you do?
Yeah.
You were just like, because I fucking love this. Like, this is what I do, and I enjoy it. Like, you wouldn't go telling someone to go stop playing football because they're not fucking Ronaldo, like, or Messi, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
and you see so many.
Yeah, you enjoy yourself.
Exactly. You see so many amateur teams where then the father, right, on the weekends is still playing the games and the family is at home. Why does he do it? Because it's his moment to not only shine, but having a good time, right? It makes him feel good. And he also knows that he's never going to play in the Bundesliga or Premier League or anything alike. And if that's the only reason why we're doing certain things, we should never really start anything to begin with, because we will never be the greatest at something.
Yeah, so I thought your post there was just so great, and I just hope it reaches kind of more people. But I also, this is where that kind of anyone who's semi-jacked, and I kind of understand it now, because people, again, who are maybe average to like below or what have you, then see all the standards out there and they're like, how the fuck can this be natural? Because in my experience, this is not possible. And I think we all go through that. I don't know if you had that, Pascal, but I certainly had it when I started lifting, where I was just like, I looked at someone like Matt Ogus, who, great genetics. He was like goals completely. And I was like, man, I've been lifting like a couple of years less than him. I am nowhere close.
Yeah.
How is he? Like, I would doubt that he was natural. Like, now I could, like, there's no doubt in my mind that Matt is natural.
Oh, Matt, like, do you hear that? If you're listening, I'm sure you are not.
He definitely
Steve is calling you tiny.
Every episode. He's a manlet, so.
Yeah, Steve says you're pathetic.
But yeah, I mean, and a good example, like Chris Elkins just won WNBF Worlds, like
absolutely.
The men's physique, crazy physique. Like, you look at him, and again, he's a manlet as well. No offense to either of them. Like, they look stacked, and they are stacked. But like, again, there's kind of smoke and mirrors in regards to, like, and I've said this, you can look amazing on your own in a photo, but when you're stacked up against another like load of people, it's not always the same. In terms of competing, like, judges don't care how you look on social media; they only care how you look on stage. So I think even like there's so many elements to this where, as a competitor, you could doubt yourself because you see someone and you don't know if they've kind of photoshopped it or like put loads of edits in there to make themselves look leaner or found the best lighting. You just don't have anyone who can find you in that lighting, so you start doubting yourself. And like, this is where social media and the comparison is a thief of joy, can easily come in. And I just always like remind myself when I'm in, like, don't know, like in the shopping mall or like in the supermarket, and you just look around and be like, 9 times out of 10 I'm the most jacked person, like
by a long shot.
Exactly. You go on a beach, normally you're one of the most jacked people there, and this is the same for anyone else. It's because, like, in real life, real life is not social media. So yeah, it's just, but this is where I was coming to, like, the young kids who see these guys, like, they're seeing the genetic elite, and no wonder they often think they're unnatural. They look at someone like me even and be like, oh, you're unnatural, because they're seeing a flash picture of me and how big I am. It's like, if you did 10, 15 years of consistent stuff, you might even look better than me. Please keep going. Don't just like call people unnatural and give up or go on steroids immediately.
Yeah. It's funny because at some point I even said it to you that whenever I was at Heathrow Airport, London, walking around in Berlin, these are kind of major cities, you know, and by the amount of absolutely stunningly beautiful people you see on Instagram, you tend to believe that the world is just full of beautiful people and that you're just an ugly piece of shit. And then I'm walking around on Heathrow Airport or in Berlin, in London, and this sounds a little bit condescending and also arrogant, but it's not meant in that way. But I look around and I don't see those beautiful people. And I'm just asking myself, where the hell are all of those beautiful people? Because online, I see them constantly, the entire time. And then I'm going out in the real life, in the real world, and I never really see anyone like this, where I'm just like, holy shit. Whether it's a man or a female, you can make a judgment whether someone is very, very good looking or not. And I'm just like, I don't really see that. Right? And this is also something that you can imagine to be like when it comes to lifting. Very rarely do I see someone who's very jacked outside. And if I do, then I'm just giving him the nod of approval of like, I know you're lifting. I know you've been doing this since a long time. Respect, bro. Respect.
Yeah, I completely feel you on that. It's just so well said. I think a lot of times people again, it's just a false reality when they focus too much on social media. And I think it is good to temper that and take some time away from it. And probably think about all the like listeners can think about some of their close, like, I don't know, like their partners, boyfriends. Their partner's like best friend's boyfriend or whatever. Like I think of Charlotte's like her best friend's partners. I'm like, I mean, none of them lift. None of like they think I'm the hugest, most jackedest guy, whereas I'm like, I'm not really that big. And they're like, you were ridiculous. And yeah, I think sometimes people just need to take a step back and kind of see the bigger picture sometimes and not get
I just want people to stick with things. So often in my life have I stopped things when they got challenging. And when I now reflect back on it, right? So let's just say music, I played a long time, did a long time music. At some point, I just lost the joy because it became a little bit of work. But if I just continued to do a little bit of practicing, right? Doesn't really have to be a lot. By now, I would have played over or close to 20 years. Right? And if I just had stuck with it, I would have been now very, very, very good, right? But I decided to stop at some point. Of course, the reasons for it were absolutely legit and absolutely feasible to be doing that. But there are just certain things where I just stopped, and I sometimes ask myself, what if I just had continued to do a little bit? Doesn't really need to be a lot. I would have probably actually become quite good at many, many things, right? And that's the same, especially when it comes to hypertrophy and changing your physique. I just want people to understand that so not just hearing those words, but really understand that it takes a long time most of the time, and that you just have to keep going. And chances are things will change.
Yeah. I forget what the exact quote is, but it's something along the lines of people overestimate how much they can do in like the short term and underestimate how much they can do in the long term. And that's a perfect example that you presented there. Or like sometimes I think about, I want to read a book, and I think, man, I can't read like, I don't know, like I want to read loads in the short, but I'm like, even if I read like a page a day over a month, like that's a lot of pages. Yeah. And like, I mean, a page is very little, but maybe a chapter, like every couple of days, like you could finish a book in a few months. Like that's better than not doing anything at all. And it's not that big of an investment. So yeah, I think that's just a good lesson for people in its like own right. It's like, again, try and fall in love with the process. Don't get caught up in like short-term gratification. I mean, bodybuilding is literally the like, what's it called? Personification. Is that the right word?
I don't know what it is that you want to say.
Basically, the personification, if that is the word, of like delayed gratification, like that is bodybuilding. It's delayed gratification. That is what it is, in like a nutshell. So yeah, it's sad to see people kind of go, and then it's just crazy bringing it back to like Liverking, and then people thinking he's natural. I'm just like, why did anyone think he was natural? Like,
full guy walks around coming back to Liverking.
Yeah, guy walks around shredded, like clearly like tanned up as hell. Like, I don't know, trend tan, is that a thing? Yeah. I think it is, and it's just like complete madness that anyone ever thought.
But this is what knowledge and education is about, right? We have the experience to now know what the top of the top natural bodybuilders look like. And we can already kind of make that differentiation between kind of most of the time enhanced people and not enhanced people. But there was not that long ago, clearly a time where I thought like, man, I have some education here and knowledge, but I still have a hard time believing that he's natural. And now just seeing I don't know, also because of social media, which has a positive aspect, because you widen your horizon of realizing what's really out there, and you see all of those very, very, very talented natural bodybuilders, which then puts things a little bit more in perspective, because you then see 20 people, 30 people like this, and not just like one guy who is or claims to be natural and in reality is natural, but he's the only natural you've ever seen to look like this, you know? And now with something like Natty News Daily, if you're exposed to something like this nearly on a daily basis, then of course your perception changes and you realize, holy shit, there are actually a lot of people who look like XYZ, and they are not enhanced. Whereas then you can kind of I don't know, make a clearer cut between enhanced people and not enhanced people. And sometimes it's not as clear cut, because there are people who are enhanced who just don't know shit about kind of training and nutrition, who aren't even genetically that blessed, and who look like decent natural bodybuilders, not even impressive natural bodybuilders, and who are on shit ton of gear.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough, because even like, what's his name? The Liverking, like looking at him, he's not obscenely huge. So it's not like crazy to think he could be an elite natural bodybuilder. There's some telltale signs in his physique that make it a bit like I'm like, I don't know, his traps, his delts, like his upper body just generally versus his lower body. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And obviously his like way of life and like the way he lifts and everything, and his like the way he speaks about like training nutrition, he'd need to have elite genetics along with like very good programming and like concepts behind that, which then you see those kind of elite natural bodybuilders. I actually don't have a clue how much, like what are the Liverking stats, but you just look at him and you're like, okay, like this guy so like looks suspicious. But you're right in that there could be guys that don't even look like you'd expect them to be on gear, and then they are. And then you'll never really see that or think about that. And ultimately, it's the same with genetics as the same with like steroids. Like, don't focus too much on what others are doing. Like, just focus on your process and what you're doing.
It. You can't change it anyway, right? It doesn't really make any kind of difference to your life. Honestly, no, right? And if someone else, right, let's just assume he's really jacked up to the gills and takes so many steroids and still competes in a natural competition and takes away your win, will your life all of a sudden go to be completely miserable? Your wife is actually then starting to cheat on you. Your kids your kids will neglect you. You will lose your job because your boss is actually then freaking disappointed by a failure such as yours. No, absolutely not, right? It's kind of like that. It's just a title for you, right? And it doesn't really matter then after all.
Yeah, it's rough as a competitor. I hate to think someone placing above me, like taking stuff and like after all the hard work that you've put in naturally. But at the end of the day, you put it so well, like it actually makes no difference.
No.
Like and I think Jeff Alberts has said it, like you don't look back and look at the trophies, your placings. No one remembers that you won or lost or whatever. You just see the photos.
Exactly. New York Times, Bloomberg, they won't really put you on the title of the newspaper saying like, hey, natural bodybuilder got robbed from a pseudo natural or fake natty bodybuilder. So no, the world honestly doesn't really care. And your life shouldn't really change whether someone else is taking steroids or not. Of course, when it comes to Liverking, we need to separate between kind of deceiving people for their own benefits of like monetary benefits, especially ripping other people off. But if you just were to, I know it sounds wrong to some other people's ears, saying and telling like, okay, if you're competing against someone who's enhanced, who's competing in a natural bodybuilding federation, and he takes the win from you, and he came out as a natty, in reality, though he was enhanced, it's shitty. I'm not saying that it isn't, but it won't really make your life any miserable. It won't really have a truly negative impact on your life. In the moment, for maybe 1 or 2 days and a couple of weeks, you will actually feel very put off, maybe even by the federation, but you move on. Right? You move on. Right?
Unless that's why the Liverking.
Unless it's the Liverking, and
he comes and wins a natural bodybuilding show,
and he ripped you off of a lot of money.
Exactly.
But other than that, it's just like a symbol that has been taken from you, and it's up to you to decide what it is turning into, whether it's actually becoming a real problem, or whether you're just like saying, "Hey, he's a shitty person, man. Let's just move on," you know. And I think that's something that is very important to also then acknowledge about natural bodybuilding. I think natural bodybuilding is more, so enhanced bodybuilding, in my opinion, is kind of like, I hate to say it, a professional level of bodybuilding, because people make a true living off of that. like by just competing and being that athlete. Natural bodybuilding to me is more about the journey of what is it that you can do, what is it that you can endure, the things that you learn along the way about your work ethics, patience, your pain tolerance, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's way more valuable than any trophy that is out there. The trophy is basically just a stamp of approval of like, yeah, you've made it, did the hard work and effort, and now here's your trophy, go back home, right? But this is something that cannot even be destroyed. And the things that you've gained won't really be destroyed because they are, I know it sounds so philosophical, but they are living, keep on living inside of you, right? Yeah. And maybe even continue living inside of then your spouses maybe as well, you know, because you've taught them about work ethics as well, and staying consistent and all that kind of stuff, right? I know, once again, it sounds so cheesy and philosophical, but this is what, to me, natural bodybuilding is way more about.
Yeah. I can say it myself, seeing you like do what you've been doing, take it to stage, was very inspiring to me, because I do this and I'm like, oh man, like I'm placing, I'm doing all right, but I'm not winning shows. Will I ever go pro? And then I'm like, fuck, Pascal, look at him. Like, likewise, like you're not at all about like the winning or going pro. You're just doing it for you, that journey and that experience. And I'm like, man, that's so inspirational. Fuck that other stuff. Let's go through this and just do it because I enjoy the process. And if it's only about winning, don't fucking do it, because there's no point, because you can't guarantee that outcome by any means. So I find that incredibly inspiring. So even like I know other people listening and watching are finding those things inspiring. This could be a whole different subject matter, but I do find it challenging when you're in the fitness industry. The Liverking's a great example of this. Part of the reason he was such a marketing power and made so much money was due to his physique. Yeah. I recently made a Facebook post basically saying like two people could say the exact same thing. One of them could be jacked and could have actually learned it off the skinnier guy. And that could be someone enhanced, learning it off someone natural. And the enhanced person who's bigger, more impressive physique, looks like they know more about the lifting and nutritional process. Even if they learned it from the other person, he's going to get way more recognition, probably earn more money and get all this extra benefit. So it could be a whole like rabbit hole that we could go down. It just goes past, like, I see the appeal to going on the enhanced side, not just from like a competitive standpoint, like being a professional in that regard, but also just like if either you or me went on steroids, whilst there could be some downsides because we're viewed as like a natural company or what have you, I think overall, if we put on 50 pounds of muscle, which isn't our question, imagine your physique with 50 pounds of muscle. How much difference would that make then to like the appeal of our Instagrams and our like even this, like we're doing here? I don't know. I imagine it would have some, there's obviously downsides too, but it's just an interesting thought that I had in my mind where I was just like, man, I can see why a lot of people, like Alberto Nunez said it in his vlog, where it's almost now the kind of weirder thing in bodybuilding is to stay natural, and it's more normal to go enhanced because that's like where there's just more draw into, like you said, professional. You can actually earn a living by competing. And again, when you're bigger and kind of got that jack physique, everything else in terms of your business could grow too. You're probably more likely to get kind of sponsorships, maybe like clothing or whatever it might be, all these various things, because like you have a more aspirational looking physique.
Yeah.
So,
no, absolutely. And yeah, I think that this is something that we can save them for the next time. But just shortly on this one, I think it's an inherent human flaw when it comes to this, and a fallacy just of like connecting one dot with another and making wrong correlations there. But yeah, once again, this is something I think that we can touch on next time because we're coming up to an hour. As always, though, guys, if you're finding it interesting of what it is that we're discussing, then feel free to chime in the link or in the comment section below. Also, in the description below, you will find a link to our Discord group. So feel free to also then join the Discord group. I am constantly online because I'm sitting at my desk. Steve, not so much, but then you can chit chat with me and the other guys who are also regular. Yeah, you commented.
I don't know how I missed it. It was recent though that the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you can chit chat with me and also the other regular Discord participants. Other than that, of course, as always, you can then find our online coaching as well in the description below. if you need to have a chat, if you want to have a chat, if you find yourself struggling to make progress, finding yourself stale or whatever, unsure about how to progress, then you can always jump on a call with us, and we are more than willing to help you, especially now that we have brought on Mike. And this is then where of course, there's a huge variety of price points. And I know this is always something that people hate to talk about, but it's just a realistic thing that needs to be addressed as well. And yeah, just guys, thank you very much as always for listening, for tuning in. Hit the like button if you like that episode, and every support is appreciated. And I guess I'll speak to you guys soon. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.